lovely rose garden, and welcome to my combination Imbolc reading wrap-up and Ostara TBR. Because why waste a week when I could be reading? After all, spring has officially begun. It's time for new ideas and new challenges. But I also know that spring tends to be a very difficult season for me. Usually, if I am going to get sick in the year, it happens around the turn of the spring season. I have been a lifelong allergy sufferer, and despite being on a regular regimen of medication, the increase in allergens does hit me pretty hard. I have also been dealing with a lot of personal issues, car issues, and so on. It's going really, well, it's going. The time will pass anyway. At least I've had books to help me through it. My task for myself during the Imbolc season was to finish reading all the books that I started but did not complete during Yule. And I can happily say that I did exactly what I set out to do and then some. Before I continue this video, I do want to announce a change. How unexpected from me, the book reviewer who cannot remain consistent for more than 2 months at a time. But seriously, I am slowly coming to accept that I simply don't have the amount of time and energy I once did, and I will need to combine some concepts into a singular video in order to get things posted without unnecessarily stressing myself out and then burning out. So, with few exceptions, I am no longer going to make individual review videos and will start including spoilers in these wrap-up videos. In the interest of time, I'm also fusing previous season's wrap-up with the current season's TBR. Essentially, making one big video is actually less work for me than making multiple shorter videos and trying to schedule all of them. So, let's get into it. I already have a spoiler-free interview with Jillian Maria, the author of A Colder Home, available on my channel. So let me go over my spoilery thoughts here, and you can skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear those. To start with, I want to bring up one of my favorite things about this book: its treatment of alcoholism and addiction. In so many pieces of media, particularly horror works, alcoholics are treated as pure evil. I blame Stephen King just a little, but A Colder Home brings more nuance and understanding to the alcoholic characters, both Cleo and Michelle's fathers, who both died in drunk driving accidents. The two clearly have trauma from their experiences living with a parent who struggled with addiction and complex feelings about them because of this. But they are also in mourning for their fathers, who were also loving and supportive of their daughters. A Colder Home is very much about grief and the impact that grief has on creatives in particular. Cleo and Michelle are foils to one another, both being artists and horror fans who lost their loved ones to addiction. Cleo's initial response to this is a complete creative block. She's unable to make another film in the wake of her father's death until her cousin Noah forces her to work on The Widow Ghost. And even then, she has no confidence in the screenplay. Instead of being flattered or inspired when Noah tells her he intends to submit it to a horror film festival, she's annoyed and highly pessimistic about its odds. Michelle, it would seem, has the opposite reaction. The house she lends to the filming is full of her paintings, all based around scary movies, except for one that is more disturbing than the rest: an attempted family portrait in which Michelle can't seem to get her father's face right. In the final act of the book, it turns out that Michelle can't get her father's face correct because during the accident that took his life, he was decapitated. It's such a gruesome way to die that, as we see in A Colder Home, somewhat robs the survivors of closure. It's hard to fully accept that a loved one is gone when you can't see them and know that they are dead, if that makes sense. A headless corpse could theoretically be anyone, couldn't it? It is this inability to let go that causes Michelle's home to become haunted, not only by the specters of her mother and sister, but by her own grief. A grief that Cleo shares and is thus able to somewhat see through. Cleo experiences the hauntings differently to everyone else in the house. She literally sees them through a different lens, as she views them through the camera, and also through her experience of loss that so closely echoes theirs. She is the only one truly capable of understanding Michelle and the ghosts, but to do so, to acknowledge that connection, she has to address her grief. And, well, Cleo spends most of the book pretty firmly in the denial stage, not in the sense that she doesn't believe her father is dead, but by largely ignoring the grief that comes with that fact. Obviously, I highly recommend A Colder Home, but specifically to people who like any of the following: found footage or mockumentary films, the Fatal Frame series, and the works of Mike Flanagan, and deconstructions of grief and horror. I feel like Oculus would be a great movie to pair with this book as well, and I have been wanting to rewatch it lately. During February, we ended up getting snowed in without power, and that would have been the perfect time to read A Colder Home, but tragically, I had already finished it. Instead, what kept me sane was reading As You Wish by Cary Elwes out loud to my husband. When I say that this book is as charming and optimistic and wonderful as the movie whose production it was written about, one of my favorite movies, I am being 100% genuine. The tone and storytelling of the book is so fun and lighthearted, and it seems like the entire cast and crew of The Princess Bride truly loved the story they were telling, loved being part of the production, and loved each other. The Princess Bride is such a special movie to so many people, myself included, so it's a relief and a delight to know that just about everyone who worked to make it also thought it was special. If I was going to make a drinking game for this book, and I wanted to make it lethal by the end of the second chapter, I'd suggest taking a sip every time someone is described as being any variation of lovely, wonderful, kind, or someone for whom Elwes has only the highest level of respect. Trust me, skipping this book would be inconceivable. Dragon Ascendant by Elana Mugdan was my next read. This is a distant sequel to Elana's Shadow War saga, and despite some of the events that unfold within it, I would say that it has a slightly lighter tone. I mean, I don't think anything will ever rip my soul out like Dragonchild did, so anything else set in that world is going to be lighter than that. The story is set somewhere around 200 years after the Shadow War saga, and the Andare have been well established as peacekeepers across the world of Solaris, though there are still problems that arise from time to time and hints at deeper societal issues with regards to which species are prioritized when it comes to becoming new members of the Andare. But that's not the main focus. The main focus is Isidra, a dragon who cannot wield magic, accidentally bonding with Sylvana, a powerful human wielder who hates dragons and the Andare, and the two of them having to navigate their tumultuous new relationship with each other and with the rest of their demi-flight and keeping up with classes, all the while dragons are being murdered and their riders are going missing. It's a solid YA fantasy mystery adventure set in a school environment. Moreover, this book featured my absolute favorite thing in any of Elana's books. Caria fucking Soulstar telling bigots to sit down and shut up. Every time she was in a scene, I was hyped. I would almost liken it to seeing cameos from Elana in the Wild Magic series of the Tortall books by Tamara Pierce. The magic system continues to be a ton of fun. The side characters are all well thought out, even if they aren't necessarily likable, and you could read this book without reading the Shadow War saga, though I'd obviously recommend reading the Shadow War saga too. My second nonfiction read was Celtic Mythology by Sorcha and Aron Hegarty. Overall, I think it's a good introduction to the topic of Celtic mythology, the gods, the monsters, the heroes. I like that it acknowledges up front that a lot of this history and culture has been systematically erased, and there are a lot of aspects of Celtic mythology that we can only guess at because of this. That said, I did find it to be a bit repetitive. It's designed for readers to pick and choose which sections they want to read in which order, I think. So, for someone reading from start to finish like I did, there was a lot of repeated information. If a figure appeared in another story, a lot of these same details would be included in both figures' pages. The book also provides only a quick summary of the stories that these characters feature in, so I still don't really feel like I know these stories. It is a good starter book, but definitely just a starter. I actually got to an extra book with The Castle in the Attic by Elizabeth Wynne, which I read while chaperoning a school trip. Now, did I pick this book up solely because the title is the same as the made up Chronicles of Narnia XP book in Cinderella Boy? Yes, absolutely. But I still enjoyed it all right. It is very 80s, and it has a certain sense of nostalgia to it because of that. Sometimes I really miss the older style of fantasy books where magical things just happen, oftentimes without explanation or question, as opposed to the more grounded in its own reality, which is explained to the reader world building that appears more frequently in modern fantasy. Which is not me throwing shade at that style of writing. They're both good. But after you've eaten enough chocolate ice cream, even if it's your favorite flavor, you will start to crave a different flavor. Now, as a story, I thought that The Castle in the Attic was just kind of there. The characters didn't particularly stand out to me, except for William being a boy in gymnastics. I can imagine this being a beloved childhood favorite for people who read it as kids, and it's a solid example of the hero's journey and children's fantasy. But as someone who only heard of it, let alone read it, as an adult, it's okay. I finally overcame my struggle with ebooks to finish Haven by Cyril Domes, and I know I am pronouncing that correctly because I went on Blue Sky and asked her how to say it. Haven is definitely an interesting book to read in 2026, and I think that some of the scenes and messages in it definitely hit harder than they might have when it was published in 2021. Or maybe not, because things were pretty well going to shit then too. Anyway, fairies and humans have not been coexisting in this world. War erupted between them decades ago, which led to the creation of a few fae sanctuaries called havens. Violence against fairy kind is still very common outside of these havens, with several anti-fae hate groups existing. But anyone can be a fairy and not know it until they turn and become a fae creature. My urge to see some form of disability or queer representation is definitely taking note at this point. Anyway, this is what happens to Owen's wife, Tiffany. While en route to the hospital, Owen crashes their car, killing Tiffany mid-transformation into a griffin. If that wasn't bad enough, the fact that Tiffany is Fae means that any or all of their children might be too, and they're in danger from Owen and Tiffany's own neighbors. A group of Fae arrive to help smuggle Owen and his children to a safe haven, but their journey is fraught with danger and every step is dogged by hate groups and authorities who want to throw Owen in jail and take his children away, all while they're also processing the death of their mother. It's harrowing but hopeful and features a variety of incredible characters and creatures, which you can see in more detail on Cyril Domes' website, which will be linked in the description. As for audiobooks, I had less luck. I had a hard time concentrating on much of anything over the last several weeks and ended up zoning out whenever I tried to listen to the audiobooks on my Spotify, so I just gave up and DNF'd. This is more about me than it is about the audiobooks, which were fine, I think. They just didn't leave a strong impression on me because I was not in the headspace to be impressed upon, if that makes sense. Maybe I'll revisit We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clewer someday. I also tried out a new one, The Only Purple House in Town by Anne Aguirre, but again, I just couldn't get into it. Maybe another time. Now, on to my TBR for Ostara, which lasts from mid-March to the start of May. The spring season has officially begun, a time for planting seeds that will bear fruit later. It's a lot of work and effort, but it will pay off in the end. In the past, spring has been my least favorite season. I am, after all, an allergy sufferer. Nowadays, I have a bit more appreciation for it. I enjoy seeing the flowers popping out of the ground and trying my best to plant a garden of vegetables and herbs that I can enjoy in the summertime. It has been a little bit warm lately, but I hope that we will get some rain soon. I love how rain feels different in every season. In autumn, it's very cozy, and I get the urge to cuddle up with a blanket and read a book. But in spring, it's revitalizing and refreshing and makes me want to go out and dance in it. I have some really great books on my TBR for this season. First up is a supporter request from my biggest supporter, my husband Ray. He really, really wants me to read A Treachery of Swans by A.B. Poranek. He read some of it out loud to me while he was reading it, and it does seem like I will enjoy it a lot. He also described the two main relationships as Stargoth in different fonts, so that can only lead to a good time. For my birthday, my brother's girlfriend got me Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've heard a lot about Kuang and seen her books recommended all over BookTube, so I'm actually very interested, but also a little nervous because this does seem like a pretty dense book, one that I'll definitely need to take my time with. So while I might start it during Ostara season, I am not putting any expectation on myself to finish it in time for the next wrap-up. Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix has been on my radar for years, and I've owned it for a while, and I want to finally sit down and read it. It's a nonfiction book about the history of horror book cover designs. How cool is that? This was actually the first book by Grady Hendrix I ever saw in stores, and I've been curious about it for a long, long time, so I'm very excited to crack this one open. But the one I'm most excited for is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the senior years, The Chalice of the Gods. Percy Jackson is my favorite book series of all time, and I was so excited to see that Riordan started writing books from his point of view again, especially with the premise of him applying to college. Is it weird to feel proud of a fictional character? Because Percy in The Lightning Thief would never have dreamed of being able to go to college. I also just finished reading The Lightning Thief with my students, so I am primed and ready to dive back into the world of the Olympians. Plus, it was a birthday gift from Ray. I am not putting any ebooks or audiobooks on my TBR this time around. I would like to get to at least one in each format, but I am trying to be kind to myself and consider the stressors that are going to be a part of my life for the foreseeable future. My car issues are continuing to be just unfathomably awful, I think is a good way to put it. So I am simultaneously trying to pay off the loan that still remains on it and look for a new car and accept that my chances of getting out of debt grow ever slimmer as the world becomes more and more expensive to exist in. Speaking of, I did remove the final paywall between readers and my ebooks. Previously, I had listed my ebooks on the Roselin Books Coffee as pay what you want, with a minimum purchase of $1, but now they are available completely for free. I really, truly, deeply appreciate tips and reviews to help more people find my books, and I hope you would consider supporting me if you read and enjoy my books. But the main point is that times are hard, and I don't want anything to stand in the way of readers accessing my work. Not even a single dollar. Well, that's all for this wrap up and TBR. Have you read any of these books? Are you excited to check any of them out? Leave a comment below to let me know, and keep growing until next time, Rose Garden.